Yes, please start.
Hello, everyone. Today we are going to dive deeper into a topic which is super essential at workplace, in our relationships, with our everyone around us, and even better if I could say that if we are able to understand and develop the skill that we are going to deep dive today, it is definitely going to be an added super skill into our world. Today, we are going to talk about the persuasion paradigm. And this skill is absolutely necessary for us to be winning the hearts and minds at workplace and everywhere. Today, we will we'll start with the most shocking observation which happens in the corporate world. Did you know that 88% of employees feel disengaged at work? And then more than 550 billion is lost annually just because of workplace conflict and misalignment. And that's a huge cost that we will all have to pay as human beings for the conflicts that we will have with our colleagues or bosses or peers. And what if I told you that there is one skill which could help us reduce all these losses? One skill that will help us enhance collaboration. And even better, how about I tell you that this will help us become better leaders? And this particular skill that I'm talking about is called persuasion. Today, I'm here to introduce to you the corporate persuasion paradigm, an advanced approach in mastering persuasion in the workplace, not just to influence decisions, but to bring people together as a single cohesive unit called team, and also to win the hearts and minds. Right. Before we deep dive into the strategies and science behind persuasion, let's start understanding at the ground level what is persuasion. So I went ahead and Google searched what is persuasion. Google threw three different definitions to me. Let me give that to you. The first one is to induce someone to do something through reasoning or argument. See, if you have to induce someone to perform some action, it is called convincing. That's what we generally tell. The second definition goes like this: provide some sound reason for someone to do something. So that is motivating them to perform an action by giving them a sound argument so that they agree and then they do. The third definition is cause someone to believe something, especially after the sustained effort. And this is persuasion. You put in some efforts and make the other person believe on something, and then you let them take that decision. So, persuasion, in short, is all about shaping the perceptions, thoughts, behaviors, and actions of someone and to make them take action. And that is, in simple, persuasion. If you look at what is the persuasion, how it is in corporate world, persuasion is the act of convincing or influencing someone to adopt a belief, take a specific action, agree with a common viewpoint, using reasoning or using emotional appeals and communication techniques. And that's exactly what we're going to look at today. It involves presenting ideas in a way that the other person will understand, other person will value, other person will be able to emotionally connect to and logically appeal to. It sounds like a very complex process, no? When you have to tell someone something and get them to agree with you and perform an action. But it's a very simple technique that we are going to apply today, before which a famous person, La Rochefeld, he said that persuasion is the art of getting people to do something they want to do while making them think that it was their idea. And that's exactly what is persuasion. People don't do things for us or for others, they do things for themselves, what they feel is right. And that's exactly how we will have to persuade the other person when we are in the place of a leader. In essence, Persuasion is about creating a connection that motivate others to say yes. And that, most importantly, through understanding trust without having to have a forceful saying of a yes. And that's true persuasion. While we saw in the earlier session that we human beings are not thinking machines that feels, but we rather are feeling machines that we think. So what's important when it comes to persuading a person, a human being? We need to communicate to reach beyond the logic and to tap that emotions, because that is the driving force behind human behavior, right? And communication can powerfully do that. And that's exactly what we are going to look at today. Up until this point of time in my life, I did not know what was persuasion. It was the toughest meeting of my career, and that's exactly what I would like to share with you. It was January 2020. If you remember, that's when COVID was spiking really hard at China. And what did I do? I was on a mission to go to China because I will have to win and salvage a critical project with one of the largest OEM in China. And that meant a lot to my organization. The stakes was really high because such was the OEM customer that I was handling. We all landed in China. There were multinational teams flying in together to China, and there was a dedicated customer meeting that happened the very next day. So we all flew in and we all came in together into what was called the war room. So that is the jargon that we generally tell when we are in an urgency to prepare for a presentation, right? So all of us were put together in a room and we started the most crucial conversation to prepare for the important meeting that happened tomorrow. It was very simple. The goal was to win the customer. So we all sat to prepare, put a presentation together to showcase the customer that we can do it and let us continue the project. But what really happened was that the war zone really turned into a battlefield. And I cannot describe it as any other because there was a lot of chaos. The voices were raised, fingers were pointed, the blame game was thrown liberally around. One team accused the other for their rigid processes and delayed software delivery, while the other team told the next team that it was because of you that the requirements was fluid and ever changing, and the conversation spiraled and spiraled into a blame game with a lot of cultural tensions surfacing. All of this was happening, and I was sitting there wondering what's really happening. At that moment, I realized something critical. If we walked into the customer meeting tomorrow like this, divided, chaotic, the project is definitely lost. Right now, someone had to redirect the energy in this room, which is so chaotic, and to make it more clear and responsible. And I felt the responsibility fell on me. I couldn't help, but I stood up and said certain words. I told them that this isn't about what went wrong. It is about what we are going to do next. Tomorrow is the customer coming in and he doesn't need to know what are our excuses. Why did not we keep our commitment? But rather, they need to know what is our commitment for future. We owe it to them and ourselves, and we should be standing united so that we can deliver. And all of a sudden, I saw that the room went quiet, as if my words just snapped everyone out of their tunnel vision of in the blame game. Slowly, the conversation shifted, and we were able to come together as a same unit, and we were able to prepare the presentation for tomorrow. And the next day, we presented as a united team in front of the customer, along with a very clear recovery plan. And we were able to get the commitment of the customer to continue the project. It was a super duper success. On a lighter note, the win marked the end of my whirlwind mission during COVID. And I boarded my last flight back to India on January 22 of 2020. as the world began to shut down. And that day, I realized that persuasion isn't about making the loudest or being that most logical voice in the room, but it is about creating that emotional and cognitive connection that makes people to say yes. And that's what was my learning. And right now, if we all want to get our team, our people to say yes, let us look at what are certain strategies which will help us get us that word, magic word yes. Now, let us first look at why persuasion matters in leadership. If we look at the science of persuasion, Dr. Robert Cialdini has written a book as well. There are 6 principles on how to get people to like us, to get influenced, for us to get a yes from people. There are 6 principles on influence. And I would like to give on the most important and the most easiest as well, the principle of liking. What Robert Cialdini says is that liking is by finding that common ground with stakeholders. That's what our how our human brains are wired, right? If I look at, let's say, Shabana, if I see that I and she have a common ground, that's an immediate spark of liking, and then the conversation builds and trust builds, and there is a long way our relationship could take off. And that's exactly how a leader at Ford used this during a merger negotiation by bonding with the other stakeholder, a high stake stakeholder. He went on to bond over personal interest, which helped him smooth the tensions, and he closed the deal successfully. It is merely using this principle of liking. So we always have to get on that common ground with people and look at how we are commonly connected, and this will definitely help us win the other person. Now let us look at the framework of the corporate persuasion paradigm, right? There are 5 frameworks to it. The first one is called cognitive framing, which means we will have to shape the perception of the other person. People don't see the world as it is, they see it through how you project it. If you look at our brains, no, they always want to take shortcuts to make decisions. Everybody's brain operates like that. How can I quickly take decision? If you look at ourselves, right, if we have to take the toughest decision, we go to people who have known that better. Even if we find people who have not known that better, we go and generally share our problems and seek for suggestions to take the decision. And while we are talking or in the conversation, while we have gone to take only a suggestion, you know what will happen? Based on what they tell, we would be making the decision in their mind. And that's how easily we want to take shortcuts to make decisions. And as a leader, you can use this particular shortcut relying mechanism of people to use cognitive reframing. It is to guide your team's perception. Let us talk about an example. Let us talk about you as a leader who wants to present a cost cutting initiative. How about you say it as it's a necessary sacrifice, you will have to do cost cutting initiative. Will people be able to buy it? Or imagine you go on to tell your team members that we this year we will have to introduce cost cutting initiatives because this is going to be an investment for a long term sustainability. Which one would the team be able to buy better? Necessary sacrifice or an investment to long term sustainability? And that's called reframing, cognitive framing. Instead of presenting as a necessary sacrifice, which is on the negative connotation, how about we use optimism for success, investment in long term sustainability? Naturally, our human minds will take the optimism, right? So that's how you get your people to buy in into your cost cutting initiative by cognitively framing that it is an investment for the long term sustainability. Let us understand one thing very clearly. People don't make decisions based on raw facts, they make them on how the facts are presented. And as a leader, it is our responsibility to see how those facts are presented to them. Let's talk about an example of a CEO persuading employees. Even in the case of Amazon's growth mindset, how Jeff Bezos have reframed those risks. An organization as Amazon has taken a lot of risks. And as a leader, Jeff Bezos has reframed those risks into learning opportunities. And this particular cognitive framing, if you look at, has encouraged people to do experimentation, lead innovations, and that is the core reason why they have succeeded as well. So don't sell risks as risks because again it has a negative or a risky connotation. Well, if you put or cognitively frame risks as experimentation, risks as learning opportunities, people would be able to buy that decision very quickly, and an organization you can succeed. So, what is that one key takeaway for us? Always frame challenges in terms of opportunities and solutions, and always use optimistic language to shape perceptions. And that's when people will be able to buy your decision. All right, let's move on to the second topic, which is emotional resonance. Facts tell people, but only emotions sell to people. And emotional resonance is all about emotionally tapping into your people. People are far more likely to be persuaded when they feel that personal connection with you or when they feel that personal connection to the message. So always look for emotional triggers such as desires, what is that security that they need, what is that recognition that they would have, what is that sense of belonging that they would have. So you need to, as a leader, you need to identify what is that which resonates most with your team members and start weaving them into your communication. Let's look at an example. Let's say as a leader you're proposing a change. You know what we will have to do first is to start acknowledging the fears and uncertainties that the team might have and start going through the solutions which will address those concerns. This way, you'll be able to emotionally tap into the triggers like security, recognition, what we saw, and get people to buy into the solution that you're giving them. And most importantly, this will turn into action from your team members. Emotions are the quickest way where you can buy into decision making. What does Antonio Damasio, for his neuroscience research, what came up in his neuroscience research is that emotions drive 90 percentage of our decisions. And that's exactly what emotional resonance goes to talk about. The next time, instead of presenting data about a failing project, share a story to the team about a similar challenge that everybody is facing. And that's exactly when you will be cognitively connecting with the team members, and that will help you buy in into the solution that you are providing. One quick actionable tip for all of us to follow emotional resonance is to use empathy driven messaging. Start by empathetically connecting to people and start understanding what really matters to them. Is it the job security or is it the growth of their roles? It could be anything. Or it could be a very simple appreciation in front of team members. Start by understanding what matters to your team members and start connecting with them on those lines and give solutions to the problems that they have. And that will make your team members connect with you most effortlessly and efficiently. Now, let's deep dive into the third framework of the persuasion paradigm, which is called strategic storytelling. What is strategic storytelling? All this while we've been only talking about storytelling, right? Let me get into what is strategic storytelling. We all know that stories are 22 times more likely to be remembered than facts alone. Facts can shake us, facts can bring us into life by giving a shocking revelation. But what sticks to our mind is only the stories. How many of us, if I ask you, what is the value system that you hold? If you resonate to a value system that your grandmother or your father or your mother had told you in the younger childhood, if you remember, those values had always a story that was told. And that's how the value system has stuck with us so long and so deep. And that's how important or how relevant stories are when it comes to sticking to our minds. Use storytelling to connect with your audience on a deeper level. Now, what is strategic storytelling? Is the art of putting this data and story together. And that's called strategic storytelling. A compelling story that combines data with human experience. And imagine this is a deadly combination that can just give life to your abstract ideas into something more lively and more human experiential. And that's going to make even more wonders because story is going to give you human experience and the data is going to give you the most logical approach to the problem. And both of them combined together can just do wonders. Now, you may ask me, how do we do strategic storytelling? Storytelling could be easy. If you think strategic storytelling is difficult, not really. I will give you a framework called ARC formula. ARC. A stands for the anecdote. Anecdote is nothing but the story. In this context, the most relatable story. R stands for reasoning. You need to support this related story with a logical data or fact. And the third one is to end with a clear next step. And this is very important because this is what is going to get you into the action. So the first one, anecdote, is to connect with you emotionally. And the R part, reasoning, is to get you to the logical and the data so that you buy into the argument. And third one, the call to action, is to inspire action in the team members. So the next time, start using ARC formula. And this is very simple: anecdote, reasoning, and call to action. And remember that stories are 22 times more memorable than the facts alone. For example, assume that you're pitching a new product or an idea. How about going and sharing the facts and telling that this is the most amazing product? Will your customers buy it just by that? Now imagine when you're pitching this new product idea, you start with a famous or a successful customer story and you explain with a rationale behind the product, with putting the statistics, logics, facts, and end with a clear next step. It's very easy to persuade that customer and pitch the new product idea. How many of us have looked at the Apple's famous product launches? Steve Jobs does awesome and a wonderful magic there. And I became a great fan of Steve Jobs just looking at how he does the product launch. Steve Jobs consistently told stories that resonated with customers, making every product feel just like a revolution. And he used exactly this arc formula. He's always used an anecdote as a story and he packed it logically with reasoning and then finally one clear call to action. So, one key message that we will all have to take through this is to practice storytelling by turning every presentation or a meeting that we are doing into a story, into data, and a very compelling call to action. With that, let us move into the fourth framework of the persuasion paradigm: decision architecture. Well, you may wonder, okay, the emotional resonance was also about decision making, the storytelling strategic storytelling was also on the decision making. And now we have a very exclusive framework called decision architecture. If you may wonder about it, but if you look at persuasion as a science, it is about making people to say yes and taking actions. And that's very important for any leader to get that decision making of their leaders. And that's why we are talking a lot about decision making. So the fourth one is decision architecture. Very subtle changes that you can be making as a leader in how the options are presented to your team members can absolutely transform their decision making. All you have to do is to decide the choices that you will have to present to your team in a way that they understand that they hold control of their decisions. And this is called the choice architecture. Imagine, instead of asking your team, do you agree with this initiative? How about you frame it as which one of these two approaches you feel is the best way forward? There are two things. One, if you ask them, do you agree with this initiative? They feel more forced to say yes. When somebody is forced to say yes, do you think that they will buy in? They will be accountable for this initiative? They'll be able to own up this decision? Not really. If you look at very keenly look at teams who does not produce action, because they don't simply buy in to the decision. They don't think that decision is theirs. They don't feel accountable for their decisions. And that's a major lacking coming from their team members. Here, as leaders, we need to understand that any initiative, any process, any decision that a leader makes is rolled out into the team. One most important thing is to have their teams buy in into this decision. And how do you do it? By simply presenting two choices for them to take a decision. Rather than asking them, do you buy into this decision? That is when they'll be forced to say yes, because nobody wants to say no to their leaders, right? When they say yes, they feel forced and they don't get into that accountability. Rather, if you're giving them two small choices, how would they feel? They choose what you would like them to choose, yet they feel empowered of taking that decision. They feel that they are accountable for the decision that they have made, and then it transpires into actions into the team member. Let us all understand that the decision making can be with a leader, but who truly drives those decision making is all the team members, and it is super important for us to make the teams feel empowered about their own decisions, and that is what is going to transpire into accountability and action. And this choice architecture that you are going to make is going to reduce their decision fatigue and make it easier for people to take a decision there and commit to that, right? So that's how important it is. One quick example would be, instead of asking them, do you support this project? Start asking them, what is that solution that you would like to offer? Which approach among these two could be made the best for the project? And I very religiously follow this decision architecture, even if it is a very simple decision that I'll have to ask my team members, do we start the meeting at 8 or 8:30? For me, it is not a big decision, but when I ask my team members, do you want to start at 8 or do you want to start at 8:30? That empowers them to take a decision. They feel that the leader is more receptive to their response. The leader respects their response and their decisions, and then they start making themselves more accountable. Imagine I say to my team members, hey, let's meet at 8 o'clock tomorrow. How many of them would be able to come? How many of them would come and tell some common problems like traffic jam? But imagine you give them an option 8 or 8:30 and they choose 8 o'clock. And I'm sure that nobody's going to come and walk inside and tell
Very,
the
very
stories of.
very few will come.
Absolutely. Very few people will come in to tell an excuse. But a lot of people are going to show up because they made that decision for themselves. If you look at that case study by Google, they did a cafeteria experiment. What they did was they placed the healthier food items at the eye level. And this way, employees started making their dietary choices to be healthy rather than feeling forced that they had some non healthy items and healthy items, and then they had to have that decision factor of, do I go for healthy or do I go for non-healthy items? Now you see that you have put the healthy items just at the eye level, so they more naturally went into the choosing the healthy items. And that is how exactly we can reduce the decision fatigue of the team members also, because you can't give big decisions and offer two huge solutions and ask them to take a decision. You'll have to arrive at smaller decisions, easier decisions for the team to make decisions upon,
Very well.
right?
That's
So
great.
the quick actionable item is to simplify decision making, and that is going to empower your team members to take better decisions for themselves. And the fifth one is conversational intelligence. I've kept it last, but that's the most important topic for persuasion paradigm. And all leaders should have that conversational intelligence inbuilt into them. Persuasion, influence, all of them thrive on one common thing. We've not spoken about it all through, but it is present, omnipresent in whatever we speak when it comes to influence or persuasion. And that is called trust. Persuasion thrives in environments of trust. If if you look at what is the greatness of a leadership, it is directly proportional to the quality of culture that the person is building. And the quality of culture is directly proportional to the relationships that you build with your teams. And the relationships of your teams is directly proportional to the conversations that you're going to have. So conversation is that basic building block where which you can build relationship with your team, and then it goes on to the quality of the culture of your team, of your organization, and then everything gets built on. So, if you look at conversational intelligence, conversations are an opportunity, a beautiful opportunity given to the leaders to be connecting with their team. And I would urge all the leaders to actually imagine something called as conversational bank. And what is this conversational bank? Every time you have an opportunity to talk to your team members, imagine the conversational bank lying next to it. And you are in control to make a withdrawal or a deposit. If you make the conversations right with your team members, imagine that you're making an entry or a deposit to the conversational bank. If you're not, then you're depleting your conversational bank. And if you, as a leader, has a depleted conversational bank, it means things are not right. The basic building block is not set right. So, in my previous organization, I was an internal committee member, the only female internal committee members. That brings me or puts me at a very important position, that I make decisions when you have internal conflicts in the organization. So I was deeply trained on posh, and we were going through a lot of case studies on posh, and one case study was just shocking to me. The case study went on to tell that a woman who had a harassment walked into her manager's office to speak about it. Now, can you imagine how difficult and what an emotional state the person has to be? So she walked into the manager's cubicle and she started explaining things. And the manager went on to say what she needs to do, step number one, step number two, step number three. And he gave her all the action items and he walked away. Now, imagine the emotional state of the person who walked in with a complaint. Much, much more emotional and deeply hurt. And why? This is a very simple example of how conversations could be depleted. This is a highly emotional conversation, and the way this was handled by the leader there was to give actions. And it doesn't really go with the energy. So, as a leader, every time you get into a conversation, the first thing that you'll have to do is to read the situation. What kind of energy that this situation has? Is it a complaint meeting? Is it an emotional meeting? Is it a brainstorming meeting? Because if it's brainstorming, it's more of facts than emotions. If it's grievance meeting or complaint meeting, it's going to be a lot of emotional conversation that can happen. So, as a leader, it is important for us to read the energy of the room and understand what kind of energy that you will have to exhibit as a leader. And that is what is going to make a connection with your team members. Imagine in the very same situation that I just explained, the leader just sat down with the person and says that I totally understand what has happened to you. I'm with you in this. Just those two statements could have emotionally calmed that person. And then instead of telling her step number one, step number two, step number three, ask her, how would you like to solve this problem? What would you like to do about this? And calmly reassure her that you are there with her. Imagine if the leader would have done this, how easy would have been the situation. And let's always remember that people don't leave organizations, they leave bosses. And situations like this is exactly what are making people emotionally disconnect with the leader, with the organization, and then they just leave. And that's how important is conversational intelligence. So now let's get quickly into what needs to be done. So step number one is to completely read the energy of the room and to align your words, your tone, your body language according to the energy of the room. And most importantly, make sure that your conversations are effective with your team members. And I love Barack Obama in his campaigns, his ability to align in a conversational style with diverse audiences is just amazing. The way he could be connecting with them, building trust across demographics is just wonderful. So, the next time when you have an opportunity to get involved with your team members on a conversational level, always remember this conversation bank. And most importantly, you always have to make that deposit into the conversational bank. Now, that's five key strategies that we looked at how to build persuasion as a leader with your team members. Now, I'd like to tell you that persuasion is very critical at this moment. Post pandemic, employees demand empathetic leadership. And you know what 2023 McKinsey report has revealed? They say that 74% of employees leave jobs due to that lack of connection and trust with their leadership. As we look at what we have today is this agile methodologies and scrum policies that we have right now, what we see here is not anymore a hierarchical structure but a flat structure where everyone is empowered to take the decision and move forward. When we have hierarchical structures moving into flat organizations, let us all remember that leadership is not going to be authoritative or by title, but leadership is going to be more participative in future. And skills like persuasion, influence is going to come in handy as a super skill for you. Let us remember that persuasion isn't about control, it's about connection. It's about that commitment of understanding to your team members and motivating them and aligning them to the goals of yours and your organization. Well, that is persuasion for us. And let us quickly look at what are the five strategies that we had learned today. The first strategy is cognitive framing, which means shaping perceptions of the team members. So, one quick takeaway for you is that always frame challenges as optimism and opportunities that will lead to success. The second actionable topic that we spoke about is emotional resonance. Let's remember that facts tell, but emotions sell. We need to look at what are the emotional triggers of our team members and directly connect to them on those emotional triggers and offer solutions. And that way, people will be more connected to you. The third topic that we spoke about is strategic storytelling. We looked at how to combine stories and data together, and we looked at ARC formula, anecdote, reasoning, call to action, and that's going to create more powerful stories for you. And the fourth framework that we spoke about is decision architecture. How easily do you give the choices to your team members where they feel empowered and they take out action, and they feel accountable for the decisions that they make. The fifth and the last topic was conversational intelligence. As a leader, we understand that conversations are the opportunities, perfect opportunities for us to create that trust that can go a longer way in persuading our team members. So, everyone, the art of persuasion is not about getting what you want. It is about creating a world where everyone feels valued, feels respected, and is driven to achieve something together. And that's persuasion for all the leaders out here. With that, let us look at one other key topic in the next session. Thank you all for listening. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Kavina. It was really great. Yeah, Rajvin has a question.
Kavina, very well spoken.
Hi,
Uh,
Rajvin.
um, Firstly, I got two questions for you. Firstly, in the workplace dynamic, um, when we agree on something, people don't agree with us. We have to accommodate. Secondly, uh, when when one when parents and caretaker and everybody else is not angry with the other caretaker is not able to forgive. The younger caretaker is not able to forgive because he has a certain energy clash, and then how to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Rajvin, your first question was about if you agree with something, the other people don't agree,
Yeah,
right?
at the workplace.
At the workplace, absolutely. This could happen to a lot of us. And the most important action that we all need to do is to start building that trust. If you see that it's a constant disagreement over things that you are going to tell, it means that the team members or people around us don't lack that trust with us. We need to first identify why that has happened. It could have happened because of a lot of reasons in the past, that the decisions that we have taken has gone in not so well direction, or it could be plain simple that they don't accept that we have that credibility to take that action. So first thing is to understand what is that is causing this disagreements over and over again. Sit with them and understand why do they have to disagree, what is the reason, and there you will quickly catch why is that this is happening more and more. The second thing that I wanted to tell you is, while you start and understand what is the basic fundamentals of why they are disagreeing, go on to form newer bonds with the team members, like the conversational intelligence that they have. If you can connect with them on an emotional level.
In my workplace, the the National Cancer Society, they're very impactful, but they're a bit slow in recepting. Uh, Previous day, the boss wanted the boss in our session, because my older caregiver, she takes care of me, and the younger one, she only relieves when she takes care of the house, and only relieves when as and when she needs to, and when my caregiver goes off on a Sunday or whatsoever. And so in my professional level, so my caregiver goes with me, and the older caregiver goes with me, and certain things the bosses don't agree with our the participant one longer time with me. The bosses, like, they agree, but they're slow. Maybe I could give them some time or whatsoever.
See, one thing that I can see is that, Rajwan, if you would like your caregiver to go along and your bosses or whoever is
No, no, no,
influential.
no, no, no. They are they are slow with the timing. You see, They're slow with the timing. They
Slow
said
with the timing, as in, could you please explain?
said they could now the sessions are only 1 hour, but the participants like me and my caregiver to give give more time to them because they are cancer survivors and they are very lonely, and me and my caregiver are dedicated to this.
I get you. So if you see that there's this conflict where people around you would like very slow and this thing, and you wanted it, I understand that you come with also a reason as to why you find it otherwise. It is easier to sit and talk and understand first their perspective as to why they want the sessions to be long, and they're very slow in your perspective, to actually understand why they are doing what they're doing, and to also present your idea, which is right now conflicting, to go on to present it with facts, and the give that emotional reasoning to why. Because when you said cancer survivors, that's an emotional reasoning which comes to the way you are making your decision, to sit and talk and understand if they can conclude to what you are saying. I've always believed when you are in a decision or a conflict and you have to arrive at a common solution, I've always believed that either I will influence or change the decision that I want to make, or I will accept what the other person says. So there is only two ways to go about in any conflict. So in this situation, my suggestion is to sit with them and first understand their side, and then present your side with the reasoning, both emotional and data reasoning, and we will see if they can buy it. If not, keep attempting. If you continue to think that what you feel is right, keep attempting to have these conversations. And let's also understand, when we are talking to humans and making them, pursue, if you want to persuade, it is an action or a process that follows. So please do make attempts
Suddenly,
and see if this works out for you.
suddenly, because I'm a girl of few words. When I see people angry around me, or
Mhm.
I'm not angry with my other caregivers, niece, or anything. But when I see anger, quietness, I don't like. So, and then this morning, out of nowhere, I did not say because me and my caregivers we sleep together, and my father goes to work, and out of nowhere, he sends me a message. Oh, no need to communicate with parents. So I'm like
I
sad.
get you. Again, I don't know why exactly your dad said so, but what I understand is when you see the other person angry, you stop communicating, right? You go into fewer words of communication. I see that there is this emotional, resonance
Yeah.
which happens here, that you get emotional and then you want to just speak few words. If that happens, it's absolutely okay, Rajman, to take a step back and be calm that particular time, and then you go and talk to your caregiver or whoever is angry that particular time, with from whom you have withdrawn. Take time, and once your anger, your emotional state comes to a stable place, then you can go and have this conversation and tell them, understand what has happened, and you tell your stand, and commonly agree on what needs to be done the other time, the next time. Because this is what we look at conversational intelligence as well. It also talks about when to stop talking and when to give time, because
because
once in a
because
conversation.
because
Yes,
the other one helps to handle me, and if I see the other one angry with my primary caregiver who's very nice and everything. My primary caregiver is like 51, and my secondary caregiver is like 34, younger than me, who's uh, who's slightly, maturity level is slightly down. But I don't understand why the
that's
younger one
because,
must act, because
why the younger one?
must act when carrying me, you see, with the elder one, because we don't talk, but we just need assistance. And if I see the younger one angry with the elder one, my muscle get tense,
Hmm.
get dystonia. So it's a bit difficult.
I understand. I see that Rajvin, you're more connected to your the primary caregiver, and anybody who hurts the primary caregiver upsets you as well. But I think if it's going to be a recurring act that your secondary caregiver is constantly um, not, emotionally threatening you, in the sense that she is angry on the primary caregiver, I think, Rajvin, when you are okay, when you are the most logical self, talk to her and tell her, explain her that it doesn't go well with you when she gets upset or angry with your primary caregiver, and tell her why exactly as well. Does that
The,
help?
the same goes with my parents. Sometimes they get angry with me for nothing. So there's two. One is family dynamics. One is communication in the workplace. I've already explained to you communication in the workplace. Yeah.
And communication can only be solved, communication problems can only be solved with communication. But what communication is when we are logical and not emotional? Because when conflicts arise, what happens is we tend to be emotional, and that's not a place where we should be talking to another person to solve the conflicts. So this is what I say in conversational intelligence. It is also an intelligence which catches that the other person or ourselves conversing with emotions, and that's a place where we have to stop the communication and take a break. That's why if you see people say take a break, count till come from 10 to 1, or drink a glass of water. So that break is essential for us to disconnect from our emotions and come back to our logical self or the rational self. When emotions comes into trigger, there is this part of brain called amygdala which starts activating, and that's an emotional response that we will give. And when amygdala is activated, our prefrontal cortex or the rational brain stops working. And that is when, if you see in a conversation, when you are angry or the other person is angry, they're not logical at all. They're just being emotional. You say, right, for no reason they are angry, and that's because they are operating from their emotional state. And there will not be any reasons, because reasonings, logic will all work with only with our logical brain. And emotions is another part of brain, and when emotional brain kicks in, the other logical part goes off. And that's when you are talking, trying to communicate, or in a conversation with people, if you see emotions are running down through the conversations, and then the conversation stops being logical, that is a pause, that is a cue that we have to take a pause. Try having these conversations again and again, because emotional conversations are the most difficult ones. You'll have to take a lot of breaks and then keep going back into the same state of talking until it gets resolved for all of you, be it workplace conflicts or be it family conflicts.
The same thing that I go through with my siblings sometimes because they have they are different generation gap lah. So I
The
think I
reasons could be multiple. The reasons could be multiple, Rajwin, but what's very essential is for us to get to the same pace, try and understand why they act in a way that they act, and put our points in the most emotional and the logical way possible, and that can do great wonders. Sorry. Rajwin, I'm hoping that you will have conversations with your secondary caretaker, telling her how it hurts you and affects you emotionally when she is angry on her primary caregiver. Try and talk to your parents and try and understand why they're angry for no reason, and probably have a conversation at a later point when they're not
because
angry,
the
and
secondary
talk to
caregiver
siblings and try and understand.
is very stubborn. It's very stubborn. So there's no point
Who
talking.
is,
Secondary, the younger one, is very stubborn. So
but I've
she's
always believed that everybody comes with their own, uh, emotional ups and downs. I'm sure you can find a sweet spot with her. Get on a common ground and talk. Try and understand what she needs. It could be anything that she needs. She needs some time off, or she needs a
Well,
salary, whatever it is. Try and talk to her and understand what really matters to her and start giving her that. And that's going to keep her at a very happy space. Second, connect with you at a better level, and then she'll start understanding what are you saying and why you're saying. And this can just smoothen the troubled waters at the moment that you're having with your secondary caregiver. I hope that helps, Rajman. Wonderful. All right, then, with that, we will close the conversation for today. And that's persuasion paradigm. Let's try and understand the science of persuasion paradigm, and we will take our persuasion to greater heights with all the strategies that we just discussed. Thank
Thank
you,
you. Thank
and
you
have
so
a
much.
nice day.
Thank you, everyone.